Greetings, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Lumpkin. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a resident of Ward 9. We are recording, so if you would like to not be on camera, you can turn your camera off now. And please mute for the time being, as we like to ground everyone in why we are here and to provide the purpose for today. If you haven't already, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us your name, your pronouns if you feel comfortable, and why you're here. In 2021, the quest for justice for Tamir continues. Tamir Rice was only 12 years old when he was killed by Cleveland police in November 2014. The struggle to obtain justice for Tamir has been ongoing since that time. In November 2020, the New York Times revealed that the Department of Justice denied requests to convene a grand jury and did not inform counsel or the Rice family of the decision, thus running the clock on one line of justice. And so the struggle continues in 2021. Thank you to the many who have helped in these last 7 years. Many of you are on this call, and we need your help to continue this work, everyone joining us for the first time today. Tonight, we are here to become grounded in the story of Tamir as delivered by his mother, Miss Samaria Rice, who joins us this evening, and to spend time in our beloved community together to talk about how Tamir's life, murder, and the lack of indictment and conviction of the cops who shot him is impacting our community and the movement. We will also talk about our current campaign strategy and sign up to take action in support of Ms. Rice's efforts to win justice for her son and our beloved son. We're here to commit together to the work ahead of us to make change in our cities and our country. We're here to see what actions can take this year to finally bring about a conviction of the officers Lohman and Garnback. Ultimately, all of us have come today because we want to dismantle our current system of injustice and bring into reality a society that actively dismantles white supremacy and protects Black children from violence. Since Tamir was taken from this earth, Samaria Rice has been on a journey of healing and courageous leadership. She is one of our movement's queen mothers. It is my great honor to welcome her into this community space as she faces yet again her grief and shock and loss and struggle. We are so grateful for your presence today, Ms. Rice. Please know that we love you, and as you tell your story, we hope you are able to feel our hands on your back. Please welcome Ms. Samaria Rice.
Hello. Hi. Can y'all hear me? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming on today. It means everything to me and my family that we get some justice for Tamir, and what that looks like for me is accountability and an indictment and a conviction. So keeping the pressure, keep doing the work, just keep everything going until they give me some answers, right? So that's where I'm at with everything. So I just thank everybody for coming on and diligently working, and know that Tamir's human rights was violated at such a very young age. I just thank y'all. I wanted to talk a little bit about Tamir a little bit and let folks know that Tamir was an exceptional child from birth. He was 8 pounds. I believe he was 8 pounds and 5 ounces or 2 pounds, because all 4 of the children were 8 pounds. So I get the ounces mixed up, but all of the kids was 8 pounds, but Tamir was 8 pounds and maybe 2 ounces. And he was 22 inches long. So he was like one of the longest babies in the nursery. His dad is 6'4". So, and I'm like 5'2". So I knew he was going to be tall. He was tall. And Tamir, I had a bad pregnancy with him. I was actually homeless in the shelter. Just got out of a domestic violence relationship, and just really trying to get my children and make sure that I didn't lose them at the time. Because when you grow up in poverty, sometimes things happen when you don't have no help, no guidance, no support, and you having a lot of babies. And I had a lot of them. I had 4 of them, and they were just coming back to back, but they were mine. So I made a lot of sacrifices for them after realizing what I was up against was the system. And they were, again, if anyone know how the system does our children family services, they take them, they try to place them. Sometimes you lose contact, and it's a horrible system. And I defeated it. And they actually had called me for a job. They said that I was one of the successful cases that they had come out of children family services. And at that time, I had to make sure that I had filed a motion to obtain legal custody of my children. Apparently, in America, when you have a child, it is not your child. You have to file legal custody of that child with the juvenile court system. That's how it's easy for children family services to come in your home and take your children, just that simple, and no questions asked. So I defeated that system, and they wanted to give me a job, but I was not ready. I wasn't ready for that. I would just get my kids. I was getting stabilized. And then in 2005, I moved to a rural community. We lived in Medina. We lived in Strongsville for 3 years, piece, and then came back down to the borderline of Rocky River in Cleveland. So I was predominantly a West Sider for almost maybe 10 years or more. And then just really stayed on the west side of Cleveland because it offered diversity. And I was in a situation where I could provide those type of things for my children, by, of course, getting assistance from the state and stuff like that. But I still was a single parent, and I was taking care of them. And their education mean everything to me. So I wanted to make sure that I moved in a community that provided them a good education. So that's when I decided to move to the far west side of Cleveland, which is Medina, Strongsville, Rocky River, and things like that. So that's how Tamir kind of grew up, getting, of course, being minorities in those rural communities. We were able to be, things were available to us. Tamir was exposed to things just as well as the other kids from cross country. My oldest daughter did cross country track. She went to Strongsville, and Tamir and Tajay, they went to I forget the name of that school, but they were able to like advance in their learning and things because they had them on track, doing what they needed to do. You know what I'm saying? So I just made that decision and didn't really think about myself. I really wanted my kids to have an education. It was just very important to me that they had an education and they had a chance to live and learn some things that I was not able to do, coming from a very broken background myself, a broken home myself. So I just really did not want my kids to suffer like I had to suffer growing up in the inner city streets on the east side of Cleveland. So I wanted to provide a different type of life for them. And that's what I did. Tamir, they went camping. They went horseback riding, they went fishing. I mean, he was just exposed to a whole lot of things that was available for us in certain communities, from the arts to um, playing basketball, soccer, being part of the soccer team in his fifth grade year at RJ Jones. um yeah, so when they're that little, and especially boys, you notice they go from activity till they figure out what's their fit. So I did a lot of that with Tamir, because Tamir played with Legos. He was only 12 for 5 months. So during all of his years, he's playing with Legos, coloring, still playing with stuffed animals. Okay, he still has stuffed animals from when he was a baby. He was he would line them up and he would play with them like little boys do. So Hot Wheels. I mean, he was still playing with toys from the video games, the little, the phone, they turned them into video games or something. From coloring, drawing, stuff like that. He was still a kid, very much still a kid. So, and also just being a helper in school, because he was kind of the tallest one. And I told the teachers, I said, well, you all just make sure y'all have a curriculum for him, because he'll keep you busy. He wants to help. He wants to, make sure everybody's being helped and doing what they're supposed to do. Something like my oldest granddaughter, I had to tell her, you need to mind your own business and do your work while you're trying to help everybody else and do your. So Tamir was a helper. He was a helper, and he was pretty big for his age, but he was very gentle and loving and caring, and just help the kids with their tying their shoes, from putting on their backpacks and things like that. So just a very exceptional little boy. Was the glue to keep our family together. Always laughing, cracking jokes. Some of his favorite food was like pizza, cheese pizza. Now he like cheese pizza. He don't like nothing else but cheese pizza, and he like chicken nuggets. And then his salad is romaine lettuce and some cheddar cheese in ranch dressing. Now that is his salad. Okay, he's not eating cucumbers. He's not eating tomatoes. He's not eating any of that. Okay, so I have to kind of sneak stuff in on him. I really just actually let them off the porch at 12 and 14 years old. And I had them so close to me just because, I don't know, they were just very clingy and close to me. Tajay and Tamir actually shared the same father and mother. Tashiana has her own father, and Tavon has his own father. So a lot of the times, people thought that Tajay and Tamir were twins. They thought they were twins because you would not see one without the other. Sometimes I dressed them alike and things like that. They wasn't that close. And I mean, they were close in age, 14, and 12. That's close, but not that close. But people still thought they was twins. So I just rolled with it. They looked so much alike. So I just rolled with it. I just never thought that sending 2 children outside that day, I will only be getting one to come back, And I can remember the day it just happened, getting a knock at the door and just hearing it in the young man's voice, which I didn't understand why they sounded like that. But my oldest son heard it because he was laying on the couch. He dashed right past me. And I was putting my stuff on, arriving on the scene, and right across the street. And sure enough, when I got there, I had Tajay screaming in the back of a police car. I mean, screaming at the top of her lungs, you all. I mean it. My 16-year-old that ran past me, he was surrounded with 8 police officers. And then I see between right there on the gazebo, I see about 8 police officers surrounding Tamir, and I could see Tamir through their legs. through their legs, because I could see. And I'm trying to get there and get to my son, and he told me to calm down or he was gonna put me in the back of the police car. And then they made me ride as a passenger in the ambulance. And the police was with me the whole time while I was at the hospital, the OR and everything. I didn't understand why they stuck around. I remember talking to the detectives and stuff. I didn't understand why I was talking to all of them people, but that's what I was talking to them. I didn't know anything, I couldn't share anything with them. And then I decided to, my brother and my father and everybody came up there. And then I was talking to my brother. I said, you think I should call the news? And he was like, yeah, call the news. And then next thing you know, was 30 reporters downstairs. And my thing is, I didn't go downstairs. I was never going to leave my son's side. Never. And later that night, they pronounced that Tamir was, he didn't make it. And my life kind of took a whirlwind from that. So to explain sometimes the dates, sometimes people see the 22nd, some people see the 23rd. I'm going to tell you all right now that I was told that Tamir passed away on the 23rd, like 1 o'clock in the morning, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. But I knew in my heart that my son was gone, and I told them they had better did everything to save his life, everything. I don't know how I knew it. I don't know how I knew it, y'all, but I knew, because when I got a chance to finally see him, he wasn't moving. He wasn't doing nothing. He was just there. That he was just there, y'all. And I would never have that image out of my head. I have so many images of my son. That's all I have left. It's like a stain on my brain. I'm always gonna have it. So, and where I'm at today is a service of the people, giving back to the community, investing in the people as I invested, not the people, but the community, as I invested in my children to make sure that I have 3 high school graduates, would I have 4. And that's my way of giving back, building Tamir's legacy, and being on the front lines, advocating for justice for these families that's murdered on behalf of police terrorism. So that's just where I'm at. I don't know. Do I still got more time, y'all? Okay. All right. Cause they was getting on me about my time, y'all. I'm just trying to. Okay. So, yeah. So that's where I'm at, and building the Samaria Rice Afro-Central Culture Center, which is located in the inner city of Cleveland. We will offer a variety of programs for free to make sure that our inner city children get the exposure that Tamir received growing up. Sometimes our inner city children do not get the exposure, and their talents are not developed as they should be. And I want to be able to give that aspect, and just building around the country, around the world. I have a lot of great things that I'm going to bring to Cleveland and just offer our Cleveland children. And that's just where I'm at. Yeah. Cleveland, Tamir really loved all 4 seasons of the year. He was that American kid that I can remember one time. Let me tell y'all, we went into Walmart, and I was in Strongsville, and my mother went and bought him a bike. Now, he had to be about 3 or 4 years old. Okay, y'all. He never rode training wheels. He rode the bike straight out the store. My mama was like, look at him go. I said, look at him. I didn't know he could. I thought I had to get training wheels, y'all. That little boy got on that bike. He probably was 4. He got on that bike and he rode it right out the store. It was one of them little kid bikes. You know what I'm saying? That the ones that need the training wheels but don't. He rode that bike straight out the store, and I didn't even know it. It was just like, wow, this boy, he can do anything. Yeah, he was the one. He was definitely the one to keep this family together and make his brothers and sisters laugh and things like that. Yeah, he's definitely gonna be always dearly missed, but I believe God did do things for a reason, and Tamir was one of the catalysts to spark the change, just as well as George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Michael Brown and Eric Gardner and Oscar Grant. Yeah, spark the change that desperately needs to happen in this country. I just don't understand how we're still here in this country. But I had to realize that, I guess I was in America, but I thought America was supposed to be for the, land of the free. I really thought that we had an American dream. That's what I thought. But, as Black and brown people, and when you get that reality check, you really do see things for what they is. And what I can say, me and my children was just living in America, just trying to live. He could have been, and I always say this because Tamir liked basketball, but if and when before Tamir passed away, he used to watch a lot of basketball games. And the Cavs was one of his. He liked LeBron James, so he could have been the next LeBron James. He could have been the next Chris Brown. He was so talented. He can dance and sing and everything. I mean, he was playing drums at Marion C. Seltzer. So he was, just learning to play the drums. And Miss Good, her name is Miss Goodwin. That was his teacher over at Marion C. Seltzer. Miss Goodwin has such beautiful things to say about Tamir, and I wish you all could have heard that. But that was his teacher. And she worked with Tamir. Because all children learn differently and they have different challenges. But they were able to work with him and things like that. Tamir never been suspended from school. He wasn't that, that typical child, and I'm not putting against anything, but when you invest in your children and you be available for them and you support them and things like that, you will see the outcome of them. You know what I'm saying? And where I come from, it's really kind of hard to sometimes have all of your children graduate from high school. It's really hard, And again, like I said, I did not want them to have to live like I had to live and grow up, no parents, basically being homeless in the street at an early age and things like that. So I did not want them to have to experience that. So I did make those sacrifices, and I did invest in my children. And I have 3 high school graduates, although the children are not in any college today because due to the trauma of the family, I'm just still here for them. I'm still here just trying to be there for them as much as I can, as much as they allow me to, because they are traumatized. The whole family has PTSD. And I'm doing what I do, just taking care of everything as always, and it's fine. This is what God wants me to do. I'm a servant of the Lord. I'm a servant of the people. Trust me. This is what He put me here for, and this is what I'm here to do. So, yeah, but hopefully, one day, the older 3 children will be strong enough to take over where I leave off at. And that's basically, what I'm doing and building for them, to carry on legacy, the community, to carry on the legacy. I just know that the inner city of Cleveland suffers so bad. I really would like it to change. I don't understand how the whole district, the school district, has an F. I just don't understand that. But hopefully I'll get a chance to have those conversations with CMSD, and hopefully the new mayor. I want to see a difference in Cleveland. I want to see a change in Cleveland. I want to see Cleveland strive for better, at the end of the day. And there's certain things that need to be placed in the community in order for that to happen. If it's programs or classes that we need in the community that teach our community how to take care of our community, not, keep it dirty and keep it clean and do things appropriate. That's what we should do, So I'm just about rebuilding and development and things like that, and very much a grandma. I got 4 grandbabies too that I'm living for, 3 girls and a boy. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to watch them grow up and just be a part of their life, and just make sure that they're getting everything that they need too as well. Oh, I'm very much part of their lives too. Like I say, hey, give me my grandkids. Y'all ain't gonna do this to our grandkids. Come on, grandma. Yeah, that's a precious baby. Yes, they are precious. Yes, they are. So not only do I have them looking at me, I have the world looking at me, and I just gonna continue to do things gracefully, very gracefully as I've been doing. I don't regret anything that I do. I don't have anything to gain from nothing that I do. Everything I do is out of love and out of purity. You don't have to worry. Let me tell you, y'all don't have to worry about y'all money with me. Trust me. I'm going to do the right thing. You better know that. I don't have no choice to do the right thing because that's what God wants me to do. Trust me. And you don't see a lot of people saying that one. God want me to do this. Trust me. Yes, yes. So I'm just going to continue to build. I pose a, okay, I wrap it up.
Yeah, we're going to.
I'm done.
We want to
wrap it up. Okay. Well, thank y'all for listening. I just wanted to share it with you all. A little bit about Tamir and his character, and that, my son was a whole little Black boy, and, and I want to see him get justice. Thank you.
What I'm going to do is give you an overview of how this family was cheated of justice, cheated even of a chance at justice, and how our systems of accountability, from the county prosecution system to the federal prosecution system, were subverted, were perverted to ensure that there would be no justice for this family. Now, I come to you from a background not only as a civil rights lawyer, which is what I've been doing for the last 16 years, including this representation of the Rice family, but you have to keep in mind that I've also been a federal prosecutor. I was the law director of the city of Cleveland. I know how grand juries are supposed to work. I know how the criminal justice system is supposed to work when it is at its best. And that's why I'm in a unique position to show you how what happened here was deliberate attempts to throw the case and avoid this family having a fair chance. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen for a moment here, and I'm going to show you a quick timeline of the Tamir Rice case. Are you able to see the timeline, a blue timeline up right now?
Are you able to zoom in a little more?
Yeah, I will.
Yes.
There you go. Should be able to see that now. You see it?
I do.
Okay. So, of course, you know that Tamir himself was killed on November 22nd, 2014. That's when the shooting occurred. By March of 2015, Prosecutor Tim McGinty, the elected Cuyahoga County prosecutor, met with the family's counsel, assured them of a fair investigation and a fair grand jury presentation. Grand juries are a group that meets in secret of ordinary citizens, but they hear a one-sided presentation from the prosecutor. So when the prosecutor wants to have somebody charged, the prosecutor asks for that and presents the information in such a way that they're seeking it. But here what we saw was a kind of feigned agnosticism by the prosecutor that, gee, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what we want. The Families Council met with Assistant Prosecutors Gutierrez and Meyer. They refused to state what their viewpoints were, which was the first red flag, because they kept making comments about how they're going to hire experts, and they kept claiming it's up to the grand jury, when we all know, you've probably heard the adage that a grand jury would indict a ham sandwich if the prosecutors asked for it. Here they were suddenly pretending that, gee, they don't have a viewpoint. They have no idea what they want. That was in September of 2015. By October of 2015, the prosecutors claimed to us as the Rice Family Council that they don't know when they're going to release those expert reports that they're getting. That, it turns out, was a lie. That very afternoon, we learned from media, they had received the materials. So they just lied to us. Oops, I'm sorry here. I had a little tech failure, but I know that this will work here. Okay, next. That next day, Saturday night, the prosecutors launched a sneak attack through the media where they released deeply flawed so-called expert reports. Those reports assumed facts for which there was no evidence. For example, they assumed the officers will say this, the officers will say that, when in fact the officers had not yet testified to anything. We then sent a letter to the prosecutor about the undue delay in the investigation and critiquing the flaws in those so-called expert reports. We got no response whatsoever. Interestingly, Cleveland.com editor Betsy Sullivan stated what to us was obvious. McGinty was preparing the public for there being no charges. And so what he was doing was using the grand jury and these expert reports as a PR campaign to try to get the public ready for a no bill of indictment. It turns out that the prosecutor's spokesman at the time, Joe Froelich, had been the editorial page editor of Cleveland.com. So it seemed that the current editor had some insight into the thinking at the prosecutor's office. Then the prosecutor by mid-November leaked a third flawed so-called expert report, which was problematic. And the prosecutor was subverting the process by launching these big media attacks. You may recall that also in mid-November, Prosecutor McGinty publicly attacked Samaria Rice and her counsel. We then wrote a letter saying you need to recuse from this investigation, or at a minimum, you need to announce to the public what your planned recommendation to the grand jury is. It is, after all, normal. Any former prosecutor will tell you it's normal for a prosecutor to make a request of the grand jury, charge or don't charge. McGinty promised, having abused this whole system with his so-called experts, he then promised he would put the Rice family's experts into the grand jury and let them present their findings. These were former law enforcement officers, two of them, who both said that the use of force was completely unjustified here and that the officers' tactics and behavior was completely off the map for what officers should normally do. They wrote written reports. We gave those written reports to the prosecutor with the expectation that those would be given to the grand jury in advance of their testimony. Instead, these two stoic former law enforcement officers came out, and you know what they told us? They said it was clear that the grand jurors did not have those reports in front of them. And second, they were not permitted to present their findings in a summary form to the grand jury. Instead, they came in and it was an immediate attack by the prosecutor with question after question, with no overview presentation permitted by the experts. And one of the assistant prosecutors, according to one of our experts, pointed the airsoft pistol at the expert and said, "What do you think about this?" Which, as we all know from the videotape, is not something that occurred during the incident at all. Now, what's the smoking gun here when I talk about subversion and perversion of the process? It's this. We know, because the union bragged about it. Ordinarily, we wouldn't know what happened before the grand jury, right? Because it's a secret proceeding. We know about this because the union bragged about it. These officers were permitted to go before the grand jury, take the oath, and read pre-written statements and then leave without taking any questions or cross-examination, as if they were politicians at a press conference. Now, you have to keep in mind, any criminal defense lawyer will tell you that they would never permit their client ever to testify before the grand jury, because it's a one-sided presentation in which the target of an investigation is going to get massacred by the prosecutor without any opportunity for their own lawyer to try to correct anything. So it's not normal for the target of a criminal investigation to even testify before the grand jury. So the only circumstances in which they would have gone in and testified would have been if they were promised special treatment beforehand. That's the only way any criminal defense lawyer worth their salt, and these officers had a pretty good criminal defense lawyer with a good reputation in town, they were permitted to go and read these pre-written statements and walk out without facing questions. What would have happened differently if the prosecutors had properly cross-examined these officers? Well, they would have shown, for example, that Officer Garmbach said that the window was rolled up because, after all, it was a wintry day. But then Officer Lohman claimed that he was repeatedly shouting out commands to Tamir, which we know didn't happen when he got out of the vehicle, because he got out and fired immediately. And what would have happened? We would have said to Lohman, what are you in the habit of shouting out commands in a fastly approaching vehicle with the window rolled up? It just wasn't credible testimony. And a prosecutor who was cross-examining would have pulled this out. And that whole business of leaving without taking questions, contrary to a US Supreme Court opinion from 1958 that says, once you've taken the solemn oath and you've testified, you can't put that Fifth Amendment privilege genie back in the bottle. You are now subject to cross-examination on the same subject matter. So when McGinty said, oh, they invoked Fifth Amendment privilege, it was completely preposterous. And if they'd really done that, absent a special deal, he could have gone to the court and said, no, they have to be ordered to testify. They don't have a Fifth Amendment right once they've gone in there. What did the prosecutor do? He did the same thing that you'll see the Trump administration did last year. They waited until between Christmas and New Year, when it was cold and wintry and people couldn't protest and organize themselves. And that's when he released the grand jury result. He went on a PR offensive. That was December 27th, 2015, between Christmas and New Year. The prosecutors' representations to the media contradicted their representations to us. The prosecutors, for example, told us as lawyers, hey, when we did enhanced stills from the video, excuse me a second, I'm almost out of juice here, let me plug in. When we presented these things to the grand jury, when we presented the enhanced stills, hey, there was no big deal, there was nothing different about them, but they claimed to the media that those enhanced stills were a game changer. They kept contradicting themselves. Now, a big thing that was going on throughout this case was people kept saying, well, gee, we should let the Attorney General investigate it. But Attorney General DeWine, now our governor, tried to normalize Prosecutor McGinty's failure to cross-examine the officers. He said he too wouldn't do it in, quote, cases like this, that he would never make a recommendation to a grand jury in a use of deadly force case, which again is another form of special treatment because prosecutors always make the call on what they want the grand jury to do. Cleveland Scene magazine reported in January of 2016 that apparently there was no grand jury vote at all for a no bill of indictment. And then the prosecutor produced a strange document that isn't a real no bill. So we don't know to this day whether that grand jury actually voted. So police use of force cases are tough enough regardless, because it's really hard to get grand juries and juries to hold police accountable. But when prosecutors try to bend the system of justice to afford those officers special treatment, you can be sure that the outcome will be the product of that special treatment. The officers will not face accountability. Did things get better with Prosecutor O'Malley? No, he promised during his campaign, while he criticized Tim McGinty, he said that the way he would fix things is to never deal with these cases himself and just send them to the Attorney General or to another county's lawyers. And that's how he has avoided accountability when he could have represented this case to the grand jury, given how badly it was presented. And finally, we saw anemic enforcement of the federal consent decree. So if you've been wondering, how is it that this special How is it that we got the result we got out of the Cuyahoga County grand jury? This is how. It was special treatment. Now I'm going to turn very briefly to what happened federally. When all of this happened, we then turned to the Department of Justice and we said, this was a process that was unfair. We now need the federal government to investigate this killing by these officers. And the Obama Justice Department agreed. They started looking into the investigation. They started investigating. But unfortunately, that investigation was not complete by the time of the Trump transition. We then saw the federal government go silent. There was minimal contact back and forth. We didn't hear anything for a long time. And then finally, last October, we learned from the New York Times and the Washington Post that apparently 2 career civil rights prosecutors in the US Department of Justice, non-political folks, had said that they wanted to convene a grand jury, a federal grand jury, to investigate these officers. And they sent 2 memoranda upstairs asking for permission to do so. Usually, and I say this from my experience as a federal prosecutor myself, it takes a matter of days or at most a couple weeks for your supervisors to approve that. Here, they sat on it for months and months, such that a second memorandum was sent. Still no answer. And apparently, a whistleblower, we think it might have been one of these career prosecutors, made a report to the Inspector General of the Justice Department saying they're politically interfering with us. They politically interfered with this investigation. A federal statute requires the Rice family to be informed about progress in the investigation, and certainly to be told whether it was closed. The Trump Justice Department, under Attorney General Barr, failed to do that. Instead, the Washington Post and New York Times reported they quietly closed the investigation, hoping, I guess, nobody would notice, and they didn't tell anyone. These career prosecutors left, and what we have now, according to the New York Times and the Washington Post, is a situation where there's the specter of political interference with that investigation because the career folks wanted to pursue this, the folks in the Civil Rights Division. So what are we doing now? We obviously, when we found that out, wrote a letter of protest to Attorney General Barr. And by December, what did they do? They just kept silent. They didn't respond to our correspondence. And again, between Christmas and New Year, they announced, hey, we want to have a meeting to tell you we've closed the investigation. Ms. Rice was out of town. We proposed a date for mid-January, and instead they just leaked it out to the media, and we never heard from them again.
God.
They didn't have the guts to meet with Samaria Rice face-to-face. They deliberately proposed a meeting between Christmas and New Year when they knew she wouldn't be able to do it and when people wouldn't be available. So that was the gutlessness of the Trump Justice Department and the Bill Barr Justice Department, the lawlessness of it, failing to comply with the federal statute to keep the victim's family informed. I mean, it's complete lawlessness. And so what we've done is, under the new Justice Department, under the Biden administration, and with Attorney General Merrick Garland now confirmed, we've written to the Attorney General. We've asked him to reopen the investigation. Again, we would have been prepared to accept the result. It would have been painful for Samaria Rice, but she would have been prepared to accept the result of a fair process, either by the Cuyahoga County grand jury or by the federal government, or both. But she's never been given a fair process. Never. Not the kind of normal treatment that a normal criminal investigation would merit. For some reason, our system of justice bends over backwards to afford these officers special treatment, and that's what's happened here. So we've asked Attorney General Garland, please reopen this investigation. Let's have a fair investigation. Let's have an open process. What you can do is join the voices, including Senator Sherrod Brown and 4 members of the Ohio delegation of the U.S. House of Representatives, who have also called, along with 40 other members of Congress, have called for the Justice Department to reopen the investigation. You can join their voices. You can reach out to Senator Rob Portman and ask him to join Senator Brown in his call. You can reach out to the Justice Department yourself, write them letters, and ask them they've got to reopen this investigation and give this family a fair process. We thank you so much for convening And thank you for your support.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you so much. And for that presentation, I saw in the chat some people talking about this is being recorded. So, at some point, I can't say, tomorrow, but at some point this will be available. So folks can utilize that and share it to really, bring more people into this campaign. And educate them on how we got here and what our plan is. So you can, so yeah, you'll have that on the way. So how do we get there? How do we win? Because that's what we're here. We're not here just to spin our wheels. We're here to win. And that comes from unity of action. That comes from people working together. So whether you're a lawyer or whether you're an activist or an organizer, whether you work in the arts or whatever your profession is, you can be a part of this. If you are just a family member that shares the values that a Black child should have the right to play, that we should have equal protection of civil and human rights, that there should be some accountability for police, just like there's accountability for everybody else, that there should not be excessive use of force, and together we can end the anti-Black state violence that descends upon our communities far too often. We win by organizing and standing together and taking action together. So how did we even get the letters that went out? So we have been, and some of you may have already signed on to this, not only the campaign, but we sent a letter out to Sheriff Brown originally so that the Northern District office was filled with somebody new and was not beholden to previous decisions. So already the community has come together. Sheriff Brown has not only taken that action, but has then turned around and added his own action to that action. So this is about building. So what we have to do is we have to mobilize our community. We have to get the attention of the DOJ and get them to open the case, as well as reach out to the electorate of all of the House of the Judiciary Committee, because those folks are the ones who actually oversee the DOJ. So they can do an investigation into the previous DOJ's actions, which were suspect to say the least, as well as make sure that this current DOJ is doing the job they need to be doing. We want to send letters and make phone calls, letters to the editor in media, producing other media content, and contributing to social media storms, atting people, and to obviously target the DOJ and the House Judiciary and other potential allies.
Well, who does the coordination for each element? But I have one.
We can take questions in the chat for right now, and then we'll have time for questions afterwards.
Well, I had a question for Attorney Chandra.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll be here for that.
That, please. Or wait till the end and we'll take questions. And also any questions that don't have the opportunity to be answered right on the spot today, feel free to forward those to Tamir's campaign at gmail.com, which you see down in the bottom there. So on the screen are some of the individuals who have already taken part in this campaign in one way or another. And this is just like on the elected official side. So at the top, we have our 4 Ohio politicians who sent their letter, including Sheriff Brown. And then beneath that was a larger collection from the House of Representatives.
Yes, it was 40. It was 40 members of Congress.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. 40 members of Congress, four members from Ohio sent an original letter, and then Bowman galvanized another 40 to send their own letter. Recently, Kevin Conwell proposed and was successful in getting the city council to also send a letter in support of reopening the Department of Justice's case. There should be more to come. I believe there was another one, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but we do have allies who are powerful, and power does not just rest within the political system. So if you have connections in any arena where someone has a lot of cachet and would be willing to put themselves out there for this campaign, that would be great. And currently what our focus is directly on the Department of Justice. So as we heard from Chandra earlier, there's a history locally that needs to be addressed. But what we're focusing on right now is the DOJ. So yeah, if you do that, if you do reach out to someone, just CC us so we kind of know what's going on, and you can use messaging that is right here. So Molly just dropped the Google Doc in the chat. So this basically lays out our value, our problems, solutions, and actions to take. So you can use that as a baseline to craft your own letter or your op-ed or whatever you'd like to do. And when you do that, once you send that out, just CC us so we can be in coordination and know what all the pieces that are happening. So that kind of speaks to the coordination. Obviously, that's not all. There are a lot of other tactics that we will use and will be purposeful and will be useful. So this is not simply a letter writing campaign. I don't want you to get that impression, but that is a big part of it. We'll be, doing the social media storms, and we'll be doing the texting. But sometimes you got to get out there in the streets, and Ms. Rice is definitely not afraid of that at all. But I will open up to questions at this point, because I know there were some, and if there were.
Yeah, we're gonna take 3 from the chat, and then we can take 3 or folks who want to speak them too. So go ahead and raise your hand. Use the raise hand function to let us know you want to ask a question. And then Megan, I think you're gonna do the ones in the chat.
Sure. So I think the Tamir campaign, folks were really great at answering a lot of the questions while they were going on with the presentation by Spode and Josiah. So thank you so much for responding. Please, you can send some questions in the chat now. Initially wanted to take some time because there was a question placed on Facebook that can be tackled. And I think it was a great coverage for the first half of it. From Sabode laid out about who actually conducted the report and the investigation, which I think you gave a really great timeline of what that provided. But I think the crux of it is, how does it make a difference which administration it is under? So that would be the question.
Well, it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, what we saw, let's keep in mind that Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association President Steve Loomis endorsed Trump, embraced Trump. And one of the purposes of that was to try to undermine police reform. I mean, he was very open about it. At least he was open about his agenda. And that appeared to have been successful. You had an administration, the last administration was simply hostile to civil rights enforcement. They only entered into one consent decree over the course of 4 years. with a community, whereas the Obama administration had entered a ton of them, had pursued investigations, had reined in police departments all around the country with consent decrees, which are federal court orders. Instead, in the Trump administration, it was like one little community in Massachusetts, and they basically brought federal civil rights investigations in the police arena to a halt. I mean, that's what they did. And they did it in the case of this investigation of officers Lohman and Garmbach quietly, just under the radar. They didn't tell that to the family. So it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, we know the folks who are in the administration now. Merrick Garland was a former Oklahoma City bombing prosecutor, has a great reputation. Vanita Gupta was the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights during the Obama administration. She's now the #3 person at the Justice Department. She was just confirmed. We're still awaiting Kristen Clark being confirmed, who's with the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. The Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, fabulous civil rights lawyer who's been a leader on police reform issues. She's awaiting confirmation by the Senate to be the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. So we know that there are going to be people in these positions who have devoted their lives to the cause of equal justice and to ensuring that there is solid police accountability and constitutional policing. These are good folks, and we're going to entrust them with the solemn obligation of seeing, number one, whether they can reopen this investigation, and number two, if they reopen it, to do a fair-minded investigation. We recognize, as Samaria Rice's lawyers, that real justice should have happened at the county level. That's where it should have happened, because there were so many criminal law tools. There were so many criminal statutes potentially at issue. At the federal level, all that's left is a single federal civil rights statute that has a very high burden of proof and a high intent threshold. And so by punting and by basically taking a dive the way they did, the county prosecutors did, they made it even more difficult to get justice for the family, because getting justice for the family through the federal system would be harder regardless of whether you had good people in charge of enforcement. And so, we just feel that there have been public servants who've not been willing to do their jobs, and for some reason have a need to exonerate police officers rather than conduct a fair-minded investigation. So I think having good people in charge makes all the difference in the world. If you ever, I'll tell you, I, for one, am never going to tolerate another insufferable person who tells me there's no difference in the administrations. I mean, that person is completely out of their mind. There's a huge difference between the approach in the Obama years to civil rights enforcement and the last administration, a difference that affects people's lives, and as you see, affected the life of the family of Tamir Rice.
Thank you. And we'll have time for one more question in the chat.
There we go. I'm unmuted now. So I see Dominique, you have your hand raised. Go ahead and ask your question. Molly might need to unmute you.
Was there one in the chat? But I can take Dominique right now. It's fine.
There is nothing in the chat right now.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. You are unmuted, Dominique.
My question is, has there been any type of initial report of all the transactions that occurred during that crime when that little boy was shot? We saw with our own eyes the video. It was within a second and a half that door flew open. Was there any kind of explanation to that type of policing? I to this day, I've not had that answered. And I've searched newspapers in Cuyahoga. I've Googled as much as I can. I'm not finding any answers.
That's because it's inconsistent with policy, and that's why there's no answer. I mean, as you might imagine, because it's simply common sense, officers, to protect themselves and to protect others, are supposed to proceed to situations with caution. They're not supposed to just rush upon a child and fire on immediately after getting out of a car. It's contrary to training. It's contrary to, the way things are supposed to be. And that's why, I think it doesn't require a police specialist or somebody who's some sort of genius at criminal justice to understand that that's just not normal behavior.
But lastly, Attorney Chandra, what I'm confused about was that there was no, if you will, forensic investigation. I mean, just the closeness of the range of the bullet, and I just couldn't understand, especially now that the world has witnessed the hearing with Chauvin and George Floyd. I just don't understand that there was such a micro investigation of everything that happened. Why it wasn't he was a 12-year-old child.
The difference is leadership, Dominique. That's the difference. We still don't have leadership in Cuyahoga County committed to these kinds of full, fair-minded investigations. And think about what it took for Derek Chauvin to be held accountable. I mean, first of all, it took a whole national movement of people moving and marching across racial lines. Second, you had a real leader in Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, who, and I will say this about him, I mean, I'm very impressed with him as a former prosecutor because he could have been politically grandstanding, right? He had the opportunity to say, I'm going to bring a first-degree murder charge. He didn't. He was very cautious and judicious in the charges that he brought, and he did what good prosecutors should do, which is follow the law and only bring the charges that are warranted by the facts and the evidence, whether it's a police officer or whether it's just your average citizen. That's what a good prosecutor should do. So he could have been grandstanding. He could have brought that first-degree murder charge, but the truth is, first-degree murder in Minnesota requires premeditation, almost like an assassin, a planning. And there's no evidence that occurred with Derek Chauvin. And so as a result, to his credit, Attorney General Keith Ellison didn't bring that charge. He brought the other charges that could credibly be brought. So it takes leadership. It takes having good public servants who don't care about fear or favor or pleasing one side or the other. They want to follow the law and they want to hold people accountable who've committed crimes, regardless of whether they are entrusted with badges and guns. And in fact, people who understand that, especially when you've been entrusted with a badge and a gun, you need to be held accountable, because if we don't do that, we have lawlessness in this country. We have anarchy. And I think there is something psychological that went on in Cuyahoga County. And you can see from this behavior, all the special treatment I laid out for you, there was something where they just couldn't bring themselves to charge the people they work hand in glove with day in and day out on handling other crimes. And that's just what happened. I mean, you can see it, letting those officers come in and give a press conference and answer no question. I mean, it's ridiculous. And, fortunately, the union was stupid enough to brag about it. So the public found out about it. And I think people understood that 3 months later, they kicked Tim McGinty out of office in the Democratic primary. But it's not like what he was replaced with was somebody who is a champion like Keith Ellison of equal justice under law. So that's why I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is leadership. That's what it comes down to, Dominique. And that's why we got to be really careful about who we elect as our public servants and make sure they're people who are willing to stand up to the powerful.
All right. Do we have any more questions from the gallery?
We unfortunately don't have any more time.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much. If you do have further questions, just go ahead and send them to Tamir's campaign at gmail.com, and we will get back to you. As we've been talking about all night, we are running a grassroots campaign in support of Ms. Rice's efforts to win justice for her son. This campaign is volunteer driven. We're not getting paid to do this, and you're not getting paid to do this. We know that many of you have volunteered for issues before that are important to you, and maybe especially a lot this past year. Like us, you're probably ready to see this conviction done with, and maybe even resent the idea that we need to struggle for it at all at this point. But we're here today because we believe justice can be won for Tamir Rice in 2021. This is a vision of hope. And we hope you feel the power in our movement and that you believe this campaign has a willing plan. That's why we're asking all of you to sign up for virtual direct actions on May 26th and June 9th, both again at 6 p.m. You can find those Action Network links in the chat. And please share, far and wide, recruit more folks. We've also purchased a digital tool called Impactive that'll help us organize people across the country. So this will be a really, really broad campaign with a lot of base. If you're able, dropping $5 to Ms. Rice to help cover these costs would be amazing. She already made the purchase herself. The app costs $150 a month. So Ms. Rice's Cash App should be in the chat now. Lastly, what if you have not done this already? Actually, no, you couldn't have done this part. We're asking everyone to join the campaign through Impactive. You can do that by following the links in this chat now. That's the ones that start with app Impactive campaigns. There it is. And we want you to know that we appreciate all of you spending this time, this evening with us today. And we're just building to the future. And we are willing to do just about everything we can for Ms. Rice and to secure justice for Tamir and so many others. There have been a lot of other things that have already happened. We talked about leadership. We talked about the police union, the CPPA. So you can sign on to our letter there as well. So we can start moving locally in that way. But in the meantime, as we focus on the DOJ, these Action Network links for the next two events, as well as the signing into Impactive, are the hard asks right now. And at this point, I don't want to take up any more time. I want to bring back Jen to close us out.
Thank you, Josiah. You did a great job. I want everyone to breathe. And as we close out and end our call and say farewell, know that we are all with each other. We are all in this together. Whatever you can do or cannot do, we are all doing this together. Breathe, take in the energy of frustration, of love, of struggle, of joy, and know that we are all in this together. Have a good evening, and I'll see you all on the 26th. Peace, y'all.